Hello everybody and welcome back to Wolfies TV, and sorry there hasn't been much content during the last week or so, mainly because there hasn't been much Wolves news happening and there hasn't actually been much general transfer news either. Of course, with the transfer window opening tomorrow, I'm sure it will finally pick up a little bit. But we have got some Wolves' latest transfer news. Before we dive into it, guys, as always, please do me a favour, hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the channel as well. And let's jump into the news that broke actually today. Probably in some ways the most important bit of news. You might judge this as good news. You might judge it as bad news. I'll give my personal take on it in a second. But it looks like Ruben Neves' deal to Barcelona is off. Now, George Mendes is led to, has been led to believe that he met up with Barcelona a couple of days ago now to basically discuss all things regarding Barcelona and their transfer plans. Obviously, he's heavily linked with them in all ways. And of course, one of those topics was Ruben Neves. Now, it now looks that because Ansu Fati doesn't want to join Wolves, but it looks like Barcelona haven't got the 13 plus million that it would cost to buy Ruben Neves, which then means that this deal is now off. The problem is that this leaves us in a really, really sticky situation. And I'm sick of dealing with Mendes, and I am sick and tired of dealing with Barcelona. Last year, they were supposed to buy Traore after a loan period and couldn't because of FFP. And now this has happened with Neves after he reportedly had already agreed a deal. He's done the whole crying thing for the second time round. So where do we go from here? He's either going to have to be sold to another club, which we've got to find another suitor for, or maybe he'll just run his contract down, which means just like Adama Traore, we might end up getting absolutely nothing for him. And you could even argue the fact is, I feel we've already replaced Neves a couple of times over. I feel like the transfer last summer of Nunes was to replace Neves, and of course he didn't go, and Nunes has been playing out of position for a whole season now. And in January, I feel like the additions of João Gomez and obviously Lamina were all geared up for the fact that Neves was going to leave. So I just feel we need to move him on at this point. He clearly wants to go, and that doesn't mean that he disrespects the club, but he clearly wants to go. He wants to go and achieve his Champions League dream. But if you can't do it at Barcelona, and it doesn't look like this deal is going to get done unless things start to change, do not hang about all transfer window, because we need the money. Go and sell him elsewhere, even if that means it's a Premier League rival. And who knows, selling him to what I'd call a Premier League rival, let's face it, they're probably not a rival anymore, because if he's going to a Champions League club, we're nowhere near that stature at the moment. We're probably going to get a bit more money for him as well. This is just turning into an absolute mess, and it really does sum up where the club is and where the people behind the scenes within the club are at the moment. Let's move on to some good news, potentially some good news, because Kondogbia is potentially a transfer target. I'm struggling to pronounce that, guys, because I've had a fill-in earlier today, and it weren't until I've tried to pronounce it, but I've suddenly realised that half my mouth is still a little bit numb. But anyway, you know who I mean. We're looking at potentially a £5 million fee. It's led to believe Atletico Madrid don't really want much of a value here, maybe because he's a bit surplus to requirements. He's 30 years old. Predominantly a midfielder, a defensive midfielder. He could definitely play and give some competition for the likes of Lamina, João Gomez within that pivot. But there's another side to this that I want to speak about if we can get him in, because he can play as a centre-back, and he's left-footed. Now, I do wonder if we do get suddenly a big money offer coming for Max Kilman, could we potentially sell Max Kilman and get in this, get him in a real discount price? And maybe then we could use that money elsewhere, really build the centre-back partnership with some experience, with Dawson playing alongside him. It's more chance that he is getting brought into the midfield in terms of competition, but maybe at just 5 million, he's actually been brought in to offer some competition in various positions. He has occasionally, very occasionally played at left back as well, but I don't think that would be our intention of buying him. I think it's much more likely either as a defensive midfielder, but he can be used as a centre back as well, which is interesting because we're going to speak about a centre back a little bit later on in the video, as well as Kilman, that could potentially be on the move. Let's talk about Gorkaev now. Of course, a big target for Wolves. We're led to believe that this is one of the signings that Lopetegui wants, because he's already spoke about basically dropping down into the Championship. We've been linked with Alex Scott. We've also been linked with Gorkaev. Now, it's led to believe that, no surprise, with the goal-scoring prowess that he has, a number of other clubs are after him. Premier League's clubs, including Everton. Leeds are apparently want him as well. But so do Sporting Lisbon. And it appears that Sporting, if you're led to believe the reports in Portugal, have made the first move and have even potentially held talks. It's been reported that the Sporting manager has actually reached out to Gorkaev, really sold the vision to him, really said how much of an important play he's going to have within the team, and potentially might have reacted a lot quicker than Wolves. Am I shocked? Probably not. I mean, this one is always going to be one of them that we probably need to sell before we, if we do need to sell before we buy, we're probably going to lose out on him, because he is going to go for around £25 million, we're led to believe. And it does look like we could end up in some kind of transfer battle to get him. That's even if we are in the race and we're not just interested FC again. This would be a big loss for me when I'm looking at people that can potentially lead the line next season, especially if we're looking into the Championship. Gorkaev is one of them. Joel Pyro is probably another one that I would like to see. But I was really excited when we got linked with him, and it's a shame if the reports are true and we potentially could lose out once again early on, because, you know, we saw that last season, didn't we, with João Palhinha, and what a really bad move that has turned out to be, basically. Let's talk about a player that could be leaving Wolves, Nathan Collins. Really divided opinion in his first season. Look, his first season hasn't been fantastic, but still a very, very young centre-back. He's been linked with a move to Brentford, and it's believed that Wolves might entertain it if they get more than the 20.5 million that we paid for him last year. Now, I think that might be achievable, you know, purely because, okay, he didn't have a great season, but he is a young centre-back. I think he has potential. Some fans might argue on that. And, you know, maybe if we could get 25 million for him, it might not be the worst thing possible. I do worry, though, that this is a case of dismissing a player too early that ends up ending up really good. Let's not forget, you know, we wouldn't pay 20 million a couple of seasons ago, 2-3 seasons ago for John Stones. Now look how much he's potentially worth. It depends how much money is an issue with this one for me personally. I do think he can still be the successor to Dawson. I don't think he's perhaps ready yet, but let's not forget he is really young for a centre-back. And I do get it. We want a player that's ready-made now. But sometimes I think, you know, you've got to keep these players and invest in them, and they might end up turning into a really good player down the line. But having said that, like I said, if we can get a really good fee for him, especially potentially the financial situation we find ourselves in, it might not be the worst thing, especially if that then means that we aren't forced to sell Max Kilman. I think there's one more I'm going to speak about, but not for too long. Gorkaev. I mean, I've ranted about the staff at Wolves in this video already, but what a disaster this has been. It's led to believe that basically he might stay on loan with Benfica next year. The amazing reason for that is the injury that he picked up within the season. Wolves do feel that they would struggle to recoup back a lot of the cost of what they paid for him. Now, yes, I think that's potentially right. If we are going to do this, I think they need to cover all the wages. And I'd also want some kind of loan fee on top. In some ways, it would make sense, because if he can go and have a good season, maybe then we might recover the cost that we paid for him. I think this guy is just a constant reminder of why we need to cut bothering with George Mendes. The more we learn about this deal, the fact that he didn't really want to come, pushed himself out in January. I mean, the guy can play as a striker. This should be someone that we're bringing back, and Lopetegui should be saying, you need to play for us. But of course, you can't make someone. So, I mean, it's just a reminder of, where we really cannot mess up this season, and maybe why we're finding ourselves in these kind of financial troubles, because, well, we brought people like him. Guys, I'm sorry that was not a more positive video. There's not really, obviously, a lot of incoming rumours coming up with Wolves at the moment. I think the main reason for that might generally just be that if it is true that we have to sell to buy, well, of course, we've sold nobody at the moment. But nothing really coming up. Bear in mind, Lopetegui said he wanted the business done by the end of July, was it? No, the end of June. I'm sorry. He wanted them back. He wanted it all done in the early part of the transfer window. We still don't know whether Lopetegui's going to stay either. So, guys, really not a positive video. But it's a harsh reality. I mean, do let me know. Is anyone optimistic about this transfer window? I'd love to hear from some of you optimists to maybe make me feel a little bit better. But guys, also just in general, let me know how you're feeling about everything. And hopefully some of you will replicate my move so I don't just seem like a real miserable, grumpy person. But guys, if you have enjoyed the video, as always, do me a favor, hit that like button. Please subscribe as well. And we're going to be back over the summer. Have a good one. Take care. Goodbye.